Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is October 21st, 2024. And of course, we're looking at Bitcoin again today. And Bitcoin did hit a few key areas to the upside that we were looking for. And it also fulfilled some criteria that we had talked about on Friday coming into the weekly close. So the Monday candle is closed. It's still Monday for me, but the Tuesday candle even is open. Catil's Day, I was about to say. But look, Bitcoin is looking pretty good on the weekly time frame right now in terms of a reversal setup. We're going to talk about that shortly, but I want to show you on the macro support and resistance chart that I have been bringing up again recently, where Bitcoin kind of spiked into. Now we did get a high of around 69 and a half. 69,498. And, the prior day's high was around 69,380 after testing into $69,000 even on Friday. So, look, Bitcoin looks, or Thursday, Friday, I guess. Was this Thursday? Was this Friday? This was Friday, yeah. So, look, Bitcoin looks good. Is it ready to just go rip into the upside blue skies? No, obviously not. Bitcoin just put in a daily high. What I will tell you about this structure right here is we have this uptrending structure off of 52 and a half, right? We had the lower high, higher low, higher high, higher low, lower high, lower low, and then a nice breakout back to the upside there. Many pattern traders are like, hey, that's a bull flag. Now, it's a little deep of a correction for me to call it a bull flag, but, in the context of patterns, it does fulfill the criteria. I'm not a pattern trader, so don't ask me about them too much in the comments there, as it doesn't suit my style. But in any case, let's go ahead and turn on that more macro time frame support and resistance chart. Oh, hey, I want to point out a few things here. So Bitcoin has successfully run after breaking back into the all-time high zone here, which is the April of 2021 monthly swing high at $65,000 to the November of 2021 $69,000 all-time high or prior cycle high there. Well, Bitcoin closed on it pretty much exactly, closed open right on it at around $69,000 here and has begun to pull back. So that means that I want to see around $65,000, not $65, $65,000 hold up as a support. Swings down below are just fine. But I kind of want to call out how cleanly Bitcoin plays with macro support and resistance areas. We had the ETF high, no closes above this monthly level from March of 2022 monthly close to the August of 21 monthly close open. This area wasn't closed above. Bitcoin sold off from the ETF highs down to a major monthly level, spiking it exactly. That was the January of 2022 monthly close at 38.5. To be fair, I think it exactly hit my number of 38.5, 38.501, but the actual monthly close open was at 38.491 on spot here. But either way, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit for this local region. And what I want to show you here is just, I showed this already, but it's just so perfectly playing between these macro areas that it's just not even funny. But the last higher low that needs to, or the last higher low, we don't have really a higher low. There's a swing higher low here that Bitcoin is testing right now. This area, if it does break down, you can see how there's the close open right here at that 66,550. If this area does break down, then I would look for a test down to around 65 to 65.5. I'll show you where that 65.5 number is coming from as well, but somewhere around there. If it does start breaking down from there, wicks into the 64.5 wick high here. There is a nice order block candle on the daily time frame right here. You can see how Bitcoin has interacted with that $65,000 prior cycle first high from 2021. A little bit of resistance, play around on top of it, dump out, and then come down and perfectly spike that March of 2021. So this was the prior cycle first high at 65. That was the April of 21. The March of 21 monthly quarterly close came in at that 58,800 or so. We saw this tested before Bitcoin essentially ran the tables, right back to the top side, even pushing right through that $65,000 high area, that swing high from April of 21, back testing it, and then just shooting right back to the top side. Nice little deviation in the lower term timeframes, and then back down. So a test inside of this green zone is just fine. If it does start to lose it, that's where we have to, entertain some deeper pullbacks. But realistically, the last, low is right here at that 58,863. A little bit of a front run of the March of 21 monthly quarterly close area. And then there's the close open right here at around 60,300 or so. And that's really the last low. Anywhere above there, Bitcoin's going to put in a higher low with higher high structure, thus painting a trend reversal setup. What we would need to see is wherever the next higher low comes in, as long as it's above this low, it will be a higher low. We just need to see continuation above the most recent high, so 69 to 69.5 up here. Pretty simple stuff. Above there, we do have some confluent resistance from the most recent quarterly high on a closing basis, and this is the Q1 of 24 or 2024 quarterly high close. This is the all-time high close at this point at 71,300 or so. There's some dailies in and around there, but realistically above 69, I'm looking at $70,000, and then 70 to 72, right around where this Q1 all-time high is currently at. And then above there on the macro, I'm looking essentially for the all-time high and higher. Pretty simple stuff. Pretty simple stuff. So I just need to see 60,000, 300 hold up. Likely going to see a higher low. But if we do see 60,200 or 62,800 here, if we start to see this breakdown, so let's say Bitcoin loses this $65,000 level, loses 64.5 and starts to head down to around 62.8 to 63. Eyes on any closes below there, and I would look for the quarterly. Just above the quarterly, this monthly October of 2021 monthly close at around 61,350, and then anywhere below there, we're looking for a trip back to test inside of this monthly and monthly quarterly zone. And, that's basically 58.8 to 61,350. Some of you might remember these numbers pretty well if you've been watching me for a while. Let's go ahead and switch this over to the daily for a little bit of fine tuning in terms of what to look for here. Now, everyone I think that watches me should have seen the accumulation distribution zones. We've been over this chart a lot. And realistically, Bitcoin did try to hold the 67,272. So see how it rejected around this area, got above it, and then sat on it for the close open. Even back tested down below it, and then pushed up to 68 to 70, hitting that 69 to 69.5, even trying to hold on to this area, technically at around 68,300 for the close open here before Monday getting slammed down and closing directly on 67,272 at the pivot zone. So again, that is the first major lower high of a downtrend within this entire structure here. Now, again, there was lower highs, but that was in the context of an uptrending structure. So first major lower high downtrend. And then the first major lower high of the second downtrend is where we just saw price head to. That's essentially, I call it 68 to 70. It's 60,300 to 70,200. Anywhere above there, I'm looking, up to around that quarterly at 71.3, 71.5, where these dailies are coming in, to around $72,000. So 70 to 72. Then above there, all-time high and higher, essentially 73 to 75, 75 to 78, 78 to 80, mid to low 80s from there. You can see that the pivot zone here is fair game. There's the $65,000. That was the first high from 2021. That is slightly outside of the bottom of the pivot zone here. That is because this was the last lower high of the first downtrending move before putting in a higher low and then double topping at that $72,000 on a swing basis. But this is a daily area that's relevant. You can see how when Bitcoin first approached this pivot zone around 67,272, paused there for a couple days, ripped right through it, tried to hold it as support and as a zone. You can see how it was holding it as support. Went in, made the first lower high, dumped out, tried to sit on 67,272, holding that 65 to 65 and a half. So this wick right here, rejecting directly off of that 67,272 before dumping out. And then the downtrend, next time it got here, where did it pin out at? Around 65 on a close, and then started to pin out at 65 and a half. So essentially, if we do see Bitcoin closing back below 65.5, I would look for this no man's land to be fair game, essentially between 65 and a half and 63.8, 64K. Anywhere below there, then keep a very close eye on 62,800, which is essentially this high over here, which is this close open. Anywhere below there, maybe a swing around $62,000 and that 61,350 area, but otherwise anywhere below there, I'm looking down to the bottom side of the range again, where we saw this beautiful close open right at the edge of the recover zone, which of course was right where these close opens came in before the lower high at 63.8. So this is essentially a zone between 63.8 and 60,000 to 60,002 to 300. And below there, eyes on 58,863 or 58.9 if you want to front run it. If we start seeing closes below there, I'm going to tell you on the longer term time frame, it's not going to look good. I would say even below 63.8, we want to see Bitcoin kind of holding this zone, getting a nice higher low structure, and then bouncing back up and ripping through this most recent high, get above that 70,000, 70,200 area, and just march on and get on with this run. That's what the bulls want to see. Of course, it has to meet the conditions on daily closes. Wicks can kind of land anywhere intraday. So, if we start seeing the pivot zone lost intraday, then you can still entertain the no man's land between these two areas. If it gets hit and still closes inside the pivot zone, great. Then we're looking at this zone as being relevant for Bitcoin to hold or lose if it does start to lose it again. The daily, I can tell you on stochastic momentum. So we've kind of went, trend, support, and resistance. I want to point out stochastic momentum before we get to volatility, because there is a few things that I think are relevant. 68, 450 to 500 or so would turn the stochastic momentum indicator back to the upside. That's attainable. Bitcoin's trading a little ways under there right now, but Bitcoin can move in a big way when it wants to. Now let's go ahead and marry this up with our bands. Now you might notice that our bands have adjusted with that expansion. And I had mentioned that, Bitcoin can march up the bands by the upper second. If you don't see closes above, it's eventually going to reverse off that upper second. You can see where it tried to hold the upper first right at that 67,272, where the upper first is currently. Close open has gotten it in the lower term time frame to start to lose that area. So from a volatility standpoint, 65 and a half to the basis, which just so happens to be around 64 and a half, which is this high over here, are kind of fair game at this point. So we start to see 65 and a half lost in lower term time frames. Look to this high. That's where the daily basis band is. Right now, that is the, of course, the 20 simple. So lose the pivot zone and beware in those lower term time frames. So just keep an eye out for that 64 and a half. Anywhere below there, 63.8 is fair game to the next major, high side structure, which is at 62.8 or so. Again, this close open, maybe it just dips in there for a quick run of like 63 and a half over here, where this little swing higher low structure is. Now, what am I looking for from here? It's because we have the little bit of a trend reversal, fake out, this bearish trend reversal pattern. That then, of course, coming off of the bull pattern here, or the uptrend, a little bit of a trend reversal, downtrend getting started to a trend break. Well, I'm looking for higher lows. So I would prefer to see it above around that 64 and a half to $65,000. That would be just fine as a pullback area for the bulls. Wicks through are fine as long as it's not closing below 64 and a half. Then I wouldn't be entertaining further trips down into the recover zone. Anywhere below there, though, you can see the lower first kind of chilling around that 61 and a half, and that's right around that that monthly level that I showed you. So there's the monthly quarterly on the bottom side at right around where this wick is coming in at 58.8 or so to 61,350, which is kind of the a big monthly zone on a closing basis from the prior cycle. That just so happens to be right around where the daily lower first is. If Bitcoin starts to head down that way, you will see this continue up and then flush right back down. Anywhere below there, 60K's got to hold up. Bulls, if it doesn't, you're in trouble. Quite frankly, because then the lower second's in play, which brings that low into play, which is the quarterly from last cycle. So that's around that 58,400 or so, where you see the top side of the risk zone. But other than that, I have to talk about the upside and the downside. So don't misconstrue that as like, oh, Landy's super bearish. Like, look it's a red candle and he's a bear now. Like I'm never bearish or bullish when I'm talking about this stuff. It's just factual. I do want to update this. The Caprioli website's broken. Sorry about your eyeballs. Oh wait, it's gonna load now. We're gonna load now. 44,220. I just want to make sure this is ready to go. So 44,220 is the new Bitcoin mining electrical cost. So we'll get that there. Nice. So we're seeing increased competition on the network. That's good. There's also been higher fees, of course, on the network, which is one of the reasons why we're seeing increased competition. Difficulty rate has been rising a bit. So the electrical cost floor in Bitcoin terms has risen. And this is worst case scenario in a crash that we would see that. If we see a trend down, then we likely see this trend down a bit lower into our target 3, which is not relevant right now, to be quite honest. So let's go ahead and get to the more macro timeframes. Let's go ahead and get rid of the Landy bands here. If you want the indicator that I use, by the way, there's a whole bunch of bells and whistles in here. As I completely screwed that up. So you can turn on and off Bollinger Bands. You can have the Bollinger Bands, the Bollinger Band labels. You can turn those on and off. You can customize this however you want. I do not suggest you do so. You can also just turn these off, right? And then you can turn on moving average set. I asked the caretaker, one of the developers for Eric Crown, to allow me to pilfer some of his code for some of his free indicators. And he said, yeah, as long as it's free, you're more than welcome to use it. So it might look familiar to some of you. The reason why I did this is because there's a lot of people who maybe don't have these plans on TradingView where you can use all these different indicators and add them individually to your chart. So it's all packaged into one. Triple. Yeah. Okay, Landy. Triple Bollinger Band set, plus there's moving averages in here, and you can customize literally everything. So if you like a different set of moving averages out of the box than the ones that come out of the box here, you're more than welcome to change them from EMA to SMA. You can customize the length. You can turn them on and off. You can have them labeled on the chart here, where it'll tell you what the EMA is or the MA is. There's all kinds of stuff. I would leave BBWP settings alone. That is one of my favorite indicators that the caretaker has made. That combines Bollinger Band width and Bollinger Band percentile indicators into one, and does some calculations that are just brilliant. So for evaluating volatility, but you can get this indicator in the Bitly link in my X profile or the video link in the description down below. All right, let's go ahead and look at the weekly. Hey, look at that. Weekly looks like it met the criteria that I was looking for last week. And let's go ahead and actually get rid of the bull bands. So there is some criteria that I talked about last week that I wanted to see met, and we have now seen that met. All right. So there we go. We got our stoplights, and you might notice that I've thrown on a horizontal line that is white here now. That's just indicating the close open. This is now a higher low. So we have the higher low swing, lower low close to the trend break. So we broke the downtrend, which was the last lower high at $65,000. And we put in a higher high at 66,550 and 65,600 on a close. Then higher low swing is now locked in after last week's closure. And that's at that 58,863. So right around that prior cycle quarterly high on a closing basis. And in this case, we needed to see closes above at minimum 64.5. We did see that. I said preferably to lock in the low on a closing basis above 65,620 or 65.6 or so. We did see that completed, and I mentioned for continuation we wanted to see closes above 66,550. We got that all in one shot. So the upside criteria has essentially been met at that 68 to 70 area. Breakout above 70, we're looking to that 70 to 72, and then 72 to the all-time high. But this is a reversal setup. So this is not full trend, but this is an uptrend, right? So we have a higher low now on a swing down here and a close. So you can see the Bitcoin has already come down and tested 66,550 and gotten a nice little bounce in lower term time frames, right? So about a $450 bounce so far, almost $550 bounce off of that area. Normal back test, that's fine, coming into the beginning of a week after a nice strong bullish candle. Now, if it does lose this area from a close open standpoint, 65.5 to what? 64.5. We've talked about that, right? Which is this one right here. So 65.5 on the close, 64.5, and we saw all these areas of interest on the daily. If that is lost, then we must pay attention to this higher low on a close. Bulls, you don't want to see closes below here. That just means more prolonged BS on the chart here. But closes on the weekly below 62, 800 to 900 or so just would not be great for you. Anywhere below there. And this is fair game. The actual higher low is potentially in danger there. So, at minimum of being tested, but then would also result likely in a structural change. So this little bit of a Morningstar reversal setup is now in play. Nice little back test coming into the weekly here. So opening of the weekly here. I'm generally going to be saying that this is the tides are shifting in favor of the bulls here. Doesn't mean that it's immediate moon time, but just understand that we have seen the things that we wanted to see structurally. Now we just need to see at worst 58,863 hold on a closing basis, but preferably for the bulls to stay out of the woods here. 62,800 is what you want to see hold up on a closing basis. Basically, from here on out. I'll be honest. Otherwise, it's going to be a long trek for the bulls yet again. So understand that, and it will make your day better. All right, so let's also look at a few other things. RSI looks good, kind of just hanging out in the mid-range here in the bullish half of RSI. Bullish control zone is 71, 150 or so, 140. That, it's in a relevant area that we talked about. It's right around the current quarterly high, on all-time high. Also around some daily close opens, that are around like 71.5, 71.3 area. And just out of curiosity, where is the midline and the SMA? SMA is at 62.5. And, that's one of the key areas that we don't want to see lost. Again, 62, 800 is the new higher low close on the weekly. So we don't want to see anything closing below there. So preferably you don't want to see the SMA getting tested. The scale midline is at 62 or 61,200 rather, which would be essentially losing that area. And where's the bearish control zone? Just out of curiosity, it is at almost $45,000, which is one of our key areas of interest, right around the prior cycle all-time high, prior cycle bear market high on a closing basis, which came in at 45.5, with the swing high coming in at 48,240. So it is technically in an important area. So it's not ready yet, guys. Maybe this week will paint the picture. Maybe everything's going to moon. We'll see how the Tuesday session into Wednesday session goes. $62,000 is also the momentum pivot on the weekly, so don't be fading that one. Closes above 62 are great, but you need to see it close above 62.8. There, we're rhyming today. I think that's pretty much all I got. I know that some of you want like projections for longer term time frames, like where is the all-time high going to come in? No one can tell you that accurately. As price breaks out into blue skies, we can start refining and we will eventually pick the high. But that's not something that I feel is that can be done like right here, right now. There are some things to pay attention to. Like we can go over here and look like, oh, hey, we want to see the monthly close above that 66,550. By the way, that would set the monthly high or low. Last higher lows down here at 25 on the swing, or just slightly under 25 on the swing, and then $26,000 on the close. We can take the bear market here and you can fib it out, right? So if you want to really start to like, okay, I want to speculate and see where things could end up, we just make sure this fib is on log. Make sure my chart is, yep, okay. So above the all-time high, we're looking to like 88, almost $90,000 at the 1618. 1272 is at 100,000, just slightly over at 100,000, 103,000 or 103 and a half. The 1414 is at 128, and then this is the 1.168. Sorry, I forgot to tell people what that was, and this is just a midline checkpoint. It actually comes in line with some key areas, I believe, or did on the monthly. Was it the monthly, weekly? I don't remember now. Maybe it was the quarterly. I don't remember, but it was coming in. I think maybe coming into the quarterly open, it was lining up there. Now we see the upper third kind of heading towards that $100,000 zone. But the 1.168, which is just a midpoint, or it's a relevant area between the one spot and 1272 for me personally. I use a lot in lower term time frames. Above there, the 1414, and then keep an eye on that 1618, and that's coming in at 173,000. Above there, we're starting to get in towards 200K in terms of the macro outlook, and just understand the reason why I actually like pulling these and why the 1618 is kind of important. I want you to note where the prior cycle highs came in. So when we look here and we get rid of all the fun stuff, we're just focused on this high right here. Oh, hey, the 1618. So not the 1.168, but the 1618 is what was failed, where Bitcoin failed to close above it. Did get some nice wicks through it from the prior cycle bear market. So we can do one of those. We can always just mess around with stuff at some other point. It's not really that crazy. $100,000 is absolutely attainable for Bitcoin, and so is prices well above there as well. So so far so good. I like the pullback on the daily, lower term time frames. We can just take a quick look here. If the bulls hold 66,550 on the 4 hour, they could start to turn things around, and at minimum run the local highs again, maybe slightly higher before a longer correction. Hell, maybe even bounce here and just go for the highs. It really depends on what occurs in the Asian into New York open session. So eyes on, head on swivel. It's getting exciting now. I know I don't sound excited, but I am. This is where it you can kind of feel it in the air. It doesn't mean that anything's going to happen right now. It takes time, right? These things do take time. So just remain patient. You've been patient thus far. And just hang in there. All right. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.